For as long as I can remember, resentment was the shadow that followed me everywhere. I grew up in a house where every penny was counted, where the winter cold bit through thin blankets, and where the phrase, "we can't afford it," was a daily mantra. My father was a quiet, tired man named Arthur. He worked double shifts at a local printing press, his hands permanently stained with dark ink. Yet, no matter how hard he worked, we always seemed to be on the edge of ruin. I hated it. I hated wearing second-hand clothes that were 2 sizes too big. I hated watching my classmates go on school trips while I stayed behind, inventing excuses. I remember my 16th birthday like it was yesterday. All I wanted was a used acoustic guitar. It cost $50. When I asked him for it, my father looked down at his ink-stained hands, his shoulders sinking lower than usual. "I'm sorry, son," he whispered, his voice cracking. "We just don't have it." That night, anger hardened into ice inside my heart. I decided my father was a weak man, a man who couldn't provide, who lacked ambition, who had failed his family. I swore that as soon as I turned 18, I would leave that house and never look back. And I did. For 15 years, our relationship was nothing more than polite phone calls on holidays. I built my own life, became successful, and buried my childhood poverty deep in the past. But I never truly forgave him for the shame I carried as a boy. And then, 2 weeks ago, the phone rang. My father had passed away quietly in his sleep, holding an old family photograph. Returning to my childhood home felt like stepping back into a world of gray shadows. Everything was exactly as I remembered: the creaky floorboards, the smell of old paper, and the worn-out furniture. As I sat in my father's small, cramped office, I felt a familiar wave of irritation. What is there even to settle? I thought. He had no property, no car, just this old house with a mortgage he had barely finished paying. Among a stack of old bills, I found a small rusted metal box hidden behind a row of worn-out books. Inside was a single bank passbook from a local branch that had closed years ago. My heart began to beat faster. I opened it, expecting to see a balance of 0, or perhaps a few dollars left behind. Instead, my eyes widened. For 25 years, every single month, without fail, a deposit of exactly $400 had been made. It was nearly half of my father's monthly salary at the time. But the balance wasn't growing. Every deposit was followed by an immediate withdrawal to an account labeled simply Contract 104-B. "What were you doing, Dad?" I whispered to the empty room. "Were you gambling? Were you paying off some secret debt while we went hungry?" The anger I had buried for years flared up again. I felt justified in my resentment. He did have the money. He could have bought me that guitar. He could have fixed the heater in the winter. Instead, he was throwing it away on some mysterious contract. Determined to find the truth and confront his ghost, I spent the next 3 days tracking down the records of that closed bank. When I finally reached an old clerk who remembered my father, he looked at me with a strange, sad smile. "Ah, Arthur," the man said, adjusting his glasses. "He was a regular. He never missed a payment for 25 years. Let me pull the file for 104-B. When he handed me the folder, my hands were shaking. I opened it, expecting to find a scandal. Instead, I saw a medical bill. A massive, staggering medical bill from the city hospital, dated the year I was born. I stared at the document, my breath catching in my throat. It was a contract for long-term medical care, but it didn't have my father's name on it. It had mine. Attached to the bill was a medical record from November 1994, the month I was born. I was born 2 months premature, with a severe lung infection. The emergency surgeries and the weeks in the incubator had cost a fortune. My young parents, with no insurance and no savings, had faced a choice: let their newborn baby die, or sign a lifetime debt contract with the hospital. My father had signed it without hesitation. The bank clerk looked at me softly. "Your father made a deal, young man." The hospital agreed not to pass the debt to a collection agency, and in return, Arthur promised to pay a fixed amount every single month until it was cleared. He worked every extra hour, took every terrible shift, just to make sure that payment went through. The clerk pointed to the last page. The very last payment had been made just 2 months ago. It had taken him exactly 25 years. He had died debt-free. I sat in my car outside the bank, the papers clutched in my hands, and for the first time in 15 years, I wept. Tears of burning shame and overwhelming love washed over me. All those years, I thought my father was a weak man who couldn't provide. I thought he was a failure because he couldn't buy me a $50 guitar. I never knew that the clothes on my back, the food on my table, and the very air breathing in my lungs were all paid for by his sweat and sacrifice. He wasn't poor because he failed. He was poor because he chose to give me life. I went back to his quiet, empty house. I sat on his old bed and picked up the family photograph he was holding when he passed away. In the photo, a tired, ink-stained man was smiling, holding a tiny, fragile baby. "I'm sorry, Dad," I whispered into the silence. "I'm so sorry."